Welcome to this explainer. Okay, today we are zeroing in on a frankly mind-bending milestone in modern financial history. We're looking at June 2026, the exact moment Elon Musk officially became the world's first trillionaire. Now, our goal here isn't to praise the guy or to tear him down. We just want to look objectively at the data and the history to really understand the mechanics behind this unprecedented level of wealth. We're going to map out how this actually happened, and more importantly, what it tells us about this crazy intersection of innovation, massive promises, and market belief.
$1 trillion. On June 12, 2026, right after the SpaceX IPO, his net worth crossed a line literally no human being in history had ever touched before. Just to put that into perspective, this milestone made him wealthier than the next several billionaires on Earth combined. It's a number with so many zeros it kind of breaks how we even measure extreme wealth. But staring at those zeros only tells us the what. It doesn't tell us the how.
So, let's dive into this and ask the much deeper question. If we just forget the exact net worth for a second and look at the foundation of all these companies, what is his ultimate product really? Because the evidence strongly suggests it's not actually electric cars. It's not just reusable rockets or internet satellites. Honestly, the most valuable product Elon Musk has ever manufactured is belief. So today, we are going to completely deconstruct the anatomy of that belief and show you exactly how the market prices it.
All right, let's kick off Section 1, Delivering the Impossible, the Reality.
Look, to be totally fair and impartial here, we have to acknowledge the absolute foundation of all this. The guy is not a con artist. You don't reach $1 trillion without a documented track record of fundamentally shifting reality. I mean, he landed those massive Falcon rocket boosters upright when the entire aerospace industry literally laughed at the idea. He deployed Starlink and beamed high-speed internet to the middle of nowhere, and he took the electric car, which, let's be honest, used to be a niche golf cart joke, and dragged the entire global auto industry kicking and screaming into the EV age.
Which brings us to Section 2, Promises that Never Arrived, the Moving Deadlines.
See, when someone pulls off the impossible a few times, a really powerful halo effect forms. People naturally start to believe him about everything. But let's look at the actual documented moving goalposts of self-driving. Back in 2015, the promise was that full autonomy was about 3 years away. By 2020, the target shifted to 1 million robotaxis on the road. And now, sitting here in 2026, the deadline for unsupervised full self-driving, it's been pushed out yet again to the fourth quarter at the earliest.
Now, what's really fascinating here is that by 2023, even he was totally in on the joke, famously calling himself the boy who cried self-driving. It's an incredibly self-aware thing to say, right? But here is the catch. Over all those years, consumers had already paid thousands and thousands of dollars up front for a feature based entirely on those highly optimistic dates. The joke acknowledges the delay, sure, but it doesn't change the massive financial transactions that were built on those promises.
And we see the exact same playbook when we look at space travel. On one hand, you have this breathtaking, globally broadcast vision from 2016, landing the first humans on a self-sustaining Mars city by 2024. But jumping to the reality today in 2026, there are no humans on Mars. Instead, we've seen this really quiet, strategic pivot to a moon city first objective. The destination just keeps shifting, but remarkably, the public enthusiasm rarely drops off.
So how do you defend these impossible timelines? Well, when he was questioned directly about whether that super aggressive 2024 Mars landing date was just a mistake, his documented response was, nope, not a typo. He called it an aspirational target. This is actually a brilliant communication strategy. By labeling a firm on-the-record date as aspirational, he keeps the dream sold, he dominates the headlines, and he maintains the momentum, even when the physical reality is miles behind the calendar.
Honestly, this pattern repeats everywhere across his portfolio. Think about the Hyperloop. It was originally pitched as this near-supersonic sci-fi tube connecting cities. What actually materialized was a standard Vegas tunnel with human drivers piloting regular cars in traffic. Neuralink human trials? Delayed for years. That sleek new roadster unveiled with massive hype way back in 2017, still completely missing from garages. And that highly touted $35,000 car for everyone basically vanished from the lineup altogether. These aren't just minor tweaks. These are massive, market-moving promises.
Let's move into Section 3, Selling a Future Story, Why We Forgive Him.
So we really have to ask, why do millions of people and billions of dollars in capital
constantly forgive these delays? The answer is simple. He isn't just selling products, he is selling a compelling, overarching story about the future, and he's letting you be a character in it. When you buy a car or a share of stock, you aren't just making a transaction, you're acting as a believer. You're literally funding a backup plan for humanity or funding a green revolution. Every single delay is just reframed as proof of how incredibly hard and important the mission actually is.
He openly describes himself as pathologically optimistic. And frankly, his defenders make a really solid argument here. They say these wild, objectively impossible timelines are a feature, not a bug. They argue that throwing out these crazy deadlines creates the massive, immediate urgency needed to pull in the staggering amounts of money and top-tier talent required to actually make hard things real. Their whole point is that a purely realistic conservative leader would never have landed a single rocket in the first place.
Which leads us perfectly into Section 4, Pricing in the Dream, the $1 trillion payoff.
So how exactly does being pathologically optimistic translate to a 13-figure net worth in June 2026? Look, he didn't hit $1 trillion after the SpaceX IPO because a self-sustaining city on Mars suddenly opened its doors, and he definitely didn't hit it because autonomous robotaxis were flawlessly driving everyone to work. He reached that milestone because the financial market priced in the belief of tomorrow long before the future ever showed up. Investors were paying an absolute premium not just for what the company had built, but for the story he told them.
So I want to leave you with this final thought to consider for yourself as we wrap up this explainer. Look at the real-world miracles, right next to those constantly shifting deadlines. Is he a once-in-a-generation visionary, delivering the impossible, just on a slightly slower clock? Or is he the greatest storyteller alive, monetizing a beautiful tomorrow that is literally always 1 year away? Honestly, maybe the truth is that you absolutely need both to build a $1 trillion belief machine. Thanks so much for walking through this data with me, and keep questioning the trends.